Hi, everyone, and welcome to AI for UX. This is a space where UX researchers and product leaders stay current on AI innovation. So I'm John Whalen, the founder of Brilliant Experience. We're a psychology-driven product innovation firm, and in each installment, we speak to a founder of one of the latest AI-enhanced research tools and dive deep into how it might benefit you and some of the inspiration of how it got started and ultimately think about where is this field headed. So I'm delighted to say that today I'm joined by Jo Widawski, and he's the founder and CEO of Maze, a tool that makes user insights available at the speed of product development. So just a quick note before we get started, these aren't, product endorsements. Brilliant always pays full price for everything we use, and no one's getting paid. It's just to learn more together. So with that, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really happy to get a chance to talk to you, Jo.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about AI and research, which is a topic that's very top of mind for all of us, I think.
Absolutely. Well, here, let me dive right in. So let's talk a little bit about Maze, just to make sure people who aren't familiar understand its sort of opportunities. So who is your audience, target audience for Maze, and what sort of pain points does it address?
Yeah, so Maze is a bit unique is that it's built for the entire product organization, from the researchers, the designers, the PMs, the PMMs. We pioneered research democratization at a time where it was a bad word to talk about democratization, and we focused on making insights available for everyone while also giving researchers the leverage to scale their impact. Today at Maze, we power teams of all sizes that range for the smallest startup to global leaders like the Ubers, the Atlassian, or the Amazon of the world. And we also do that across industries, from fintech to automotive. Researchers remain the hero of our story. They are the one that enable that democratization, and we go through them as we empower organization. But we ensure the whole org get access to those insights and get to learn from those insights. You talked about the pain point, and I think one thing that's interesting about the way that we solve that problem is we started from a very unique insight, which is that there's a 1 to 100 ratio between the number of researchers in an organization to the rest of the product organization. When you think about what it means, it really means that companies have 100 times the means to build as they have the means to learn. And so companies are going to build stuff. We believe that we should put the means of learning in the hands of the people that are building every day, and that the researchers should be the one empowering the rest of the organization to learn with them. That's what we're building against.
Very cool. And it is interesting with, some of the folks, I follow like Y Combinator, things like that, and they're arguing that increasingly the ratio of like, say, product managers and product owners to developers is changing. And so potentially there's a new ratio of the audience, but still real demand. So that makes perfect sense. And I appreciate your bravery for starting, democratization of research early on. It really, but we can see the value of there's so many questions that us UX researchers don't get a chance to answer and
Yeah,
need answering. So my argument would be it's better to get that than the best guess of the engineer or the product owner or whomever. So,
absolutely.
well, maybe you can give me a sense because there's such a wide variety of audiences. What's a typical scenario when I'm going to say a researcher, so I'm not going to identify UX researcher or product owner or engineer, but designer. But when might one of those folks use your tool?
Yeah. So I think the easiest way to talk about it is imagine a fintech team that's about to launch a new onboarding flow that needs to make a critical decision about where they need to go as a company. They might start with discovery interviews, and they can do that through the Maze moderated experience. We have a full end-to-end moderated experience where you can book meetings with participants and then run those meetings directly and run transcript. Once you've done that, you can run usability tests on the prototype that you've built from the things that you've learned from discovery's interview. And you can do that with our unmoderated studies that directly connects to your workflow tools like the Figmas or the Adobes of the world. And then finally, when you're trying to build more confidence before launch, you can use our AI moderated study to get deeper insight at scale with our new AI moderator that we're releasing. Through that entire spectrum, we then generate reports that are ready to be shared for the organization. And so as a team now, you're creating an organizational learning muscle that you can leverage. And so everyone has now the means to test any decision that they have throughout the entire product development journey, and then make those decisions confidently and drive influence across the organization.
Yeah. Really cool. And you actually just said sort of in passing and can use our AI moderation. So that's new for you
Yeah.
and really exciting to see how people start to do this. So I think, I have a class, AI for customer research, and it's been really interesting to hear how people intend to use these things or when
Yeah.
they try them. So we actually did a study ourselves, even where we did the interviews ourselves, human to human, and we had our AI moderator do some too, and we were all set to hate it and think it was awful, and we were kind of shocked that it got about 80 or 85% of what we got
Yeah.
as humans, and that was 2 years ago almost. And
Wow.
so it is remarkable what might be possible with those kind of things. So we have to, as researchers, take it seriously and really understand the value. Um,
Yeah.
well, cool. One of the things I guess I wanted to ask is you've got a really interesting suite. So I wanted to ask what, for people who haven't used it, what makes Maze a little different or unique relative to other options?
So we've been in the research industry for 7 years now. I've been building that company for 7 years. And I think one thing that we realized is that successful research doesn't just depend on tools. It starts with a very special kind of researcher. And they are the one who care deeply about leverage, visibility, and influence. We built the Maze platform. We purpose built the platform for them. And when you think about what that means, it means a platform that's designed to both scale with your need, whether you're a two-person practice or just like some of our customers, you're trying to enable 500 people in the organization to run their own research. Maze supports every stage of research maturity and scale. The second thing is versatility. Research is complex and it spans many methods. Maze bring them together: usability, moderated interviews, AI moderation, surveys, you name it, we got it in the platform, and it's purpose built to help you make any decision across the spectrum. And finally, it's about driving influence. Insights, they only matter if they actually shape decision and if they are visible. That's why we built our reporting to be shared and to make research visible, actionable, and influential across the organization. In summary, Maze is the operating system for insights. We support team of any size at any level of maturity, and we put researchers at the center by giving them the leverage to drive real influence in the business. So you can think of it as like a command center for research and for you to help scale your practice.
Yeah, in my class, I talk, especially with these new AI tools, about researchers going from being kind of the doer of research to being an orchestrator of research.
Yes, I love that.
That sounds like it's really ringing true in your case too.
Absolutely. I think it's our vision for research overall, right? Research is critical. Research historically has been seen as a tax on the product development process, on insurance policy even. I think those things are wrong. I think we should see research as something that helps companies build enduring competitive advantage. And so what's fascinating about the evolution of tools is that it follows that, right? Like it enables those researchers to, by driving more influence and by enabling more research to happen, to create more visibility for research and change the culture of learning from something that's seen as a tax to something that's seen as a growth enabler.
Yeah, very, very eloquent. And yes, we definitely want to feel that way. We don't want to just be an insurance policy. But true. I think really for major decisions, it behooves people, and it's such a amazing ROI to have
Yeah.
us do a handful of studies relative to the investment that's being made. Well, so you are introducing more AI into your system, and I'm sure we'll see that in a sec. But um, often researchers are wondering, oh, if you're doing analysis and there's AI, is it just going to make stuff up, hallucinate, or is there going to be bias in the way it asks questions, things like that?
Right.
So just, it's an important question that kind of we all have to sort of mentally overcome. How do you feel like you're trying to address that at Maze?
Yeah. So maybe I'll decompose the question into two questions. I think there's a question about how we do AI, and then ultimately, how do we ensure trust
Yeah.
in the AI that we build? And I think we've been very intentional in the way that we build AI. We're just raising our AI moderator, and we're conscious that we're not the first AI moderator product to the market, for example. But that's our researcher stance on the product. We believe that there's no value in being first to market. There's value in being first to getting it right. And so we spent a lot of time in cycles trying to learn about how is this helpful? How is this helpful for the researchers? And that's kind of been the trend line on how we've approached AI overall in the product. We've embedded AI everywhere in our entire suite, sometimes not even branding it as AI for the buzz of it, but just like empowering researchers to do more things with the technology. And when you think about how it's been embedded in our suite, both in unmoderated, moderated now, and our AI moderator, it really spans across three things: educate non-practitioners, accelerate the capture of insight, and transforming raw data into shareable and decision-ready outputs. And so in our product, the way it shows up is, for example, in unmoderated research, when you're writing your questions for your studies, AI will flag biased question and it will suggest rewrite, but also educates you on why your question was biased. And so you can imagine that it's basically a mini researcher that's sitting on your shoulder and telling you that's not how you should ask if someone likes your feature. On moderated research, we automatically transcript sessions in real time, we analyze them, and we turn them into key themes that are then shared into beautiful, ready-to-share reports. And for our AI moderator study, the AI drafts the conversation, sets the research goal, runs the interview, and finally deliver the same level of depth that we do on moderated for our AI moderated experience. So as you can see, AI is very embedded everywhere in the entire workflow, from unmoderated to moderated to now our AI moderator. And so one key question is like, how do you do AI? Like, what's your philosophy? And when the technology became available, it was a key question for us to answer, right? Like, what is the Maze way of doing AI? And for us, trust is the thing that we really landed on, right? Like, hallucinations are real. And we've designed every AI feature in Maze with one goal in mind, helping researchers build trust as they use AI to extend their practice. We know it can feel very risky, especially when you're enabling non-practitioners or putting your most valuable resource like participants in front of an AI moderator. And so to build that trust, we built on three key principles. The first one is preview. In Maze, and I'm going to show that probably in a minute, you can preview any AI-generated interaction ahead of the interaction. So you know what the moderator will ask, and that you know that the moderator will ask coherent and relevant questions. The second thing that we do is traceability. So AI generates insights, but every insight is always traceable back to the raw data. So you can see how exactly the AI reached its conclusion. And finally, control. You're always in control within the platform. That means that you have the ability to edit transcripts, decisions, regenerate insights from data. Basically, you're never subject to what the AI decides is the conclusion of an insight. You're always in control of those things. And so we believe that with both preview, traceability, and control, we create more trust with the platform, because hallucination will always be a problem with AI. And so we need to give you the tools to make sure that you can fine tune whatever the AI is doing as you build your experiences.
Yeah. Super thoughtful answer. Thank you. And more, a better question answered than the one I provided. So thank you for that. Uh, but it is really interesting. One of the things that in my class I find people respond to so strongly is that traceability. So being able
Yeah.
to see, right, the AI believed that, here are some things that are coherently go
Yeah.
together, and then you can actually go and look at the source interview. And for that matter, the speed that helps people with, to be able
Yeah.
to, I remember having, as I think it was 92 interviews we did, and then the CEO of the company asked, "Did anyone ever mention this?" And you're like, "Oh God, I've got to go back to all those interviews and find that one thing." And
Yes.
having a tool like this that then not only can say, "Here's what we found," but did you really find it? Let's make sure.
Yeah.
And so it is just that in that case, I'm really just harnessing this for speed, and I can look for it myself as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that,
Yes.
that's an empowerment and not a loss of control that we all, feel initially. Um,
Exactly. And as I was mentioning, we really ran extensive research on building the AI moderator. And so
sure.
when we spoke with the researchers, what they told us was, look, I need to be able to trust you with putting people in front, like putting an AI moderator in front of my participants. I need to be able to trust you with the reports that I'm going to show to an executive at the end. And those two things, they are very hard for me to put in your hands, because I don't trust even a mid-level researcher to do that, right? And so there's this gap. And what I find fascinating at least, is I used to be a researcher in my previous life. And when I went to clients at the time, I remember showing a report, and the first question that I would get when someone was disagreeing with something on my report was, "Show me the data," right? And we all heard that, like, okay, show me the proof behind what you're telling me right now. What's fascinating right now is that trust relationship has shifted left from the stakeholders asking the researchers to show the data to now the researchers asking the system to show the data behind a decision. And so they're the one now asking, "Show me the data," which I think is very
Yeah.
valid, but it's an interesting shift that we've observed.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing, and I'm looking forward to seeing your tool. So just a quick note. One thing that I think people sometimes miss about AI moderation is it can be a really interesting way to have inclusion. So because it's got multiple languages, and I'm in on the east coast of the U.S., it's not fun for me to interview people in New Zealand, and
Yeah,
so and for that matter, think of an incredibly busy executive or a ER nurse. So when they can just at the moment decide to take the test, it not only lets me have speed and scale, but lets me actually broaden the kinds of people that I
exactly.
get information from. So I think it's a really interesting where we sometimes think, oh, it's stealing our job. It's actually making us more inclusive and more thoughtful if we use it right. So very
I love
cool.
that.
Well, here, I think we've talked about it enough. Let me try and make sure that I can share your screen here, and then maybe you can set the
Yeah.
stage for what are we about to sort of see and walk through.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to walk through a quick preview of our beta AI moderator experience. It's going to be released on October 6th. So as you're seeing, we are recording this prior to this. You might see this video afterward, but this is the beta version. We've onboarded a bit more than 100 of our enterprise customers on that new AI moderated experience to learn from their usage, understand where they were struggling. It's been fascinating. And to your point as well, we didn't anticipate that the ability to run now studies across time zone and across language was going to be such a massive driver of adoption. And what we've learned is that this is actually the number one driver of adoption for the platform. So very similar learning. So what I'm going to show you today is a quick AI moderated study, and we're going to walk through the entire journey from creating the study to running the study to ultimately looking at the results and the report that we generate. So in Maze, when you create a study, you have three choices. You can create an unmoderated maze. And if you do that, you have access to 50 plus templates that help you run closed card sorting. We do card sorting, tree testing, all the fancy things. Very easy to use, very easy to set up. You can also set up a moderated interview. So that will help you schedule your interviews, recruit the right participants, run the interview directly within Maze, and then synthesize, run reports. But what's of interest today is the AI moderated experience. I'm going to select whatever workspace. And from here, what we're going to do is you can choose between a guided setup, which we recommend, where the AI will automatically generate your research plan. But if you also have a research plan, if you're a professional practitioner that has already set up their plan, you can simply drag and drop it if you choose the custom experience. On the participant language, as we just discussed, you can support any supported language, and we have more than 30 supported language on the platform, and we'll analyze the language in English, but you can also edit that if that's what you want. All right, so here, when we get started, it starts with a simple prompt on what do you want to learn. I prepared something to copy paste so that we don't have to watch me type for 5 minutes. Very meta, we recently conducted a study on usability study. We wanted to better understand what were the point of why were people running usability study? What was the trigger for organization to start running those usability studies in general for designers and researchers when they were running them, and understanding the ecosystem around usability. And so we give all of that context to the AI, and we can press next. What's interesting is what we've learned as we build the AI moderator is an AI moderator is only as good as the context you give it, right? And so because it will know about the company it's asking those questions for, it will know about the product or the feature context that it's asking for as well. And you can also pass down assumptions, hypotheses, or open questions that you might have so that it will educate the research plan, but also the questions the AI will ask.
Very cool. Hey, Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's
Cool.
really interesting. I've felt and sort of described to folks and heard in my class that one of the real weaknesses of these things is they're like essentially without that sort of strategic context, they might
Yes.
get the interview good, well done, but say, yeah, here's the thing you already knew, and you already knew that they're interested in this, and there's too much competition there. That's not your sweet spot for your company. And then
Yeah.
finally you get to an interesting insight for you. So having it framed more strategically, I think, is actually really, really. I don't know of other groups that have this so well framed. So I just wanted to note that's really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've tried to make it also extremely easy. So here, one of our unique features as well is this import from AI search. So here we're running a test for ourselves. So we're going to type maze. And what this is going to do is we're going to actually use AI to create a summary of what the company does so that it will feed it as context for the research. And so it says, this is Maze, and this is the product, and this is the industry and the target customer. And all of this, it pulls automatically for you. You can also put it company-wide, so not at the study level, but at the actual the team level, so that you don't have to put it again and again. Same thing for the product or feature context. I'm going to pass on these for now, but just as you said, the context is critical to ensuring that the AI moderator asks the question that you actually want them to ask. Cool. So then from there, we're going to click next, and we're going to create research goals. Okay, so it came up with 4 research goals, identifying the underlying motivations and contextual forces driving designers to conduct usability testing beyond stated reasons, understand how managers and researchers evaluate designers' testing efforts and the organizational value created, discover the social, emotional, and political dimensions that shape usability testing practices within design teams, and finally, assess the organizational enablers and blockers that impact designers' ability to conduct usability testing. You can add goal, you can edit all of those goals or remove them if you don't think they are relevant, but that way, with no PhD, I'm able to have actual research goals set up that the AI moderator is going to use to then drive the conversation.
Joe, just a quick question. There are a number of flows that sort of parallel this in the AI world. And of course, in our unmoderated tests, it would never do this. Just say, what are your questions? So maybe you can tell people what's the motivation behind having this step? Like, why is that valuable for the AI?
We felt like the most important thing to get right was aligning what you were trying to learn with, so I'm going to show the next interface, and you're going to see that you're going to see this again. But we created this intermediary step because we really wanted people to focus on those and making sure that those were actually the things they were trying to learn. Because then they spend a lot of time trying to create relevant questions within those. But what's actually the most important is that at the end of this, we are both successful if the AI moderator has answered those questions. And so we really wanted to make it front and center of the experience, because as I click on next here, what you're going to see is the study creation flow, the process. And so we wanted to really make sure that people were focused at this point of the journey to edit whatever was wrong in the experience. That makes sense.
So actually, sorry, just to frame it. So what I'm seeing now are the primary goals on the
Yes.
left, and then I can expand a section to see what questions are related to that. Is that what I was seeing?
Exactly. So here you have the goal, and then here you can choose the conversation depth. So for each of those goals, you can decide that if you want the conversation depth to be shallow, moderate, or deep. You cannot really define the exact duration because it's going to be a conversation, but we wanted to know how deeply does our AI have to probe in asking questions, because at the end of the day, we're also conscious of the participant time. And then what you can do is you can also generate questions. So here, if you click generate question, it doesn't mean that we're going to ask those questions specifically, but that helps you preview the type of question that the AI will ask relative to the goal that we've set up here. And so earlier I talked about the preview. It's a big part of this experience. It's a generative experience, obviously, so the questions will always be generated on the fly, but that helps you create confidence that the AI is going to ask the right question. If you're seeing things here that are irrelevant, you might edit the goal so that you can regenerate questions and get a better sense of what it's going to ask.
Yeah, no, so I'm sorry if I'm slowing you down. Really, really interesting. So, we have a range of folks in research, as you might imagine, who are either, yes, I want it to be more strategic, so I want your AI to have more flexibility and be more natural in how the conversation is going, and other folks are like, I want it worded exactly like this because that's exactly what our stakeholder wants. So how do I balance those two in this?
Yeah. So right now you can't do the latter. So actually, it's a very opinionated part of our product. We've experimented a lot with locked questions. So we used to have a little lock logo here where you could write your questions, lock them, make sure that the AI was asking those questions. What we've learned through the practice so far has been that when we do that, it creates very unnatural flows of questioning, because the AI is not, the AI today, the technology is not good enough to be able to organically move past questions that are becoming irrelevant. And so ultimately what happened was the AI would continuously ask questions that would be irrelevant to the answers that people have given previously because the questions were forced. And so I think part of the intention behind this is to show the experience, but to also accept that when you're in an AI moderated experience, you cannot create a strict workflow of question. One last thing that I want to add on this is, if you look at our unmoderated study experience, you can see that it's a block by block type of experience where you can ask survey question, tree testing, card sorting, etc. The thing that we're working on in the future is to be able to merge those experiences. So if you have unmoderated quantitative question that you want to ask through that experience, you can, but we always want the AI moderated part of the experience to be a generative experience with no boundaries or constraints on the questions that are being asked.
Got it. And yeah, sorry, it's just really interesting. So I keep jumping in. But that was one question actually I did have was we found that as we've been doing interviews, if it's a longer interview, having those breaks by having the sort of quantitative things are actually kind of a nice
Yeah.
pause almost. Um, I'm going to ask you something that I don't know of any tool doing, so I don't necessarily expect you to say yes, we do. But one thing human moderators do is they hear something in the first question that's relevant to, say, the fourth block, and it sort of circles back. And I just didn't know if that's something you're trying to approach or it's actually work. Yeah, I just don't know. So I wanted to ask, and you're not expecting this question, so I'll let you
No, no, no,
go.
no, absolutely. It's actually working. It's a very good question. It was part of the things that we evaluated, and that was one of the insights we got from the researchers that experimented with the platform over the past few months, where they were like, "Oh, it's interesting because in that study, a participant answered something here that would actually be relevant for an answer that's here, where I would like them to probe then more on that specific part of the answer." And so we're playing around with our model right now to make sure that this is covered. There's a lot more tests that needs to go into this, but fundamentally it's working. It's just we need more tests to make sure that it's working the way that we intended to work.
Very cool. Well, here, let me let you continue and show the things you want to. But this is great. Thank you so much, Joe.
Of course, of course. Then you can review the context again here if you want to edit the context before you go live. And then here you have a little preview of the experience. So I'm going to click Start Preview just so you see what it looks like.
Hi there. Thanks for joining this conversation. Today, we'll be exploring your experiences and perspectives on usability testing in design work, specifically looking at how and why designers approach user research in their projects. Are you ready to get started?
Let's get started.
Great, let's begin. To start our conversation, I'd like to understand more about your approach to usability testing. Beyond improving usability, what other factors...
I'm going to stop the preview so we don't have to walk through this whole thing, but you can see how easy it is to get started with this experience. And because you know the average length of the experience as well, we can preview the duration to participants as well, because we care deeply about the participant experience and for them to block the right amount of time to be able to run the study. Okay, our study is ready. We don't want to edit much. Do you have any question, John, before I move to the next?
I was just going to say it's so important to do those previews. I think as people who are new to this, understanding how it feels and sort of adjusting accordingly, I think is a super important piece. So, but yeah, please go ahead.
Exactly. Like, as you can see, the principle that I mentioned earlier, they're hard to explain in a vacuum, but they're how it's translated in the entire experience, from being able to preview the goals, being able to preview the questions, being able to preview the experience before you can get started with sending the AI moderator out. Okay, so we're ready. We're going to start testing and we're going to move to the recruit phase. In the recruit phase, what's going to happen is I'm going to be able to either share a link. So it's a simple link that I can share anywhere. No third-party app, no plugin, nothing required for people to use it. We'll soon have our famous in-product prompt. So you'll have a little prompt here to hire people that are navigating through your website, for example. And finally, you can recruit panel participants. So we connect to the best marketplace of participants in the world, and we have millions of participants that are available for you to run tests. Yeah, very easy to get started from the participant experience as well. Okay, we've now recruited. I'm going to move to the analysis part. So once the research has been run, you have two tabs here. You have the different sessions, so you can see the different participants and what they said, the summary from AI, the full transcript, as well as the automatically generated highlights from the interview. So as you can see here, I'm just going to click here for 1 second. This is a 14-minute interview.
Are you ready to get started? Yes, I am.
There you go. So everything is editable. Everything is also shareable. Everything can be transcribed as well. So the AI does the summary of the entire experience for each participant. And then it takes all of these highlights and experiences and turns them into themes. So we run a thematic analysis and we show you the big themes that we found. And for these themes, we show you the analysis and the summary, as well as the highlights that feed into that analysis and summary. As always, this is all editable. It's also shareable. So if you find the highlight interesting, you can share highlight here and it will create a highlight preview that's an embeddable link that you can share anywhere. You can even embed it in your Figma files or your Miro boards or wherever you feel that highlight might be relevant. And then with all of this, you can create your own themes as well if you find ones that are interesting that you are not seeing here. And when all of this is ready for you, you can just move to the report. And the report is basically the ready-to-share version of what I just shared. So my job used to be 50% running research, 50% deck building to create reports that stakeholders wanted to see. That's the experience that we wanted to create for our reports as well. So in each report, you'll have an executive summary, like what have we learned through that study. All of this is obviously editable. You'll have the study session so that if someone wants to actually do a deep dive in a specific participant session, they have access to it. And then you will have the different themes. And as I mentioned earlier, what we've learned from researchers is whenever we show them those themes, they want to see the highlights that helped create those insights. And so here, you can show the different highlights. You can, in the report directly, look at the different pieces of highlights that we've created as well. So you can also build more empathy for the people that help generate those reports. We put the human back in an AI-generated study and insight. And so with this, you have a simple link. You can share it anywhere on Slack. Our reports are seen on average by more than 25 people in an organization. So that's one of our biggest priorities, is the ability to create influence through those reports. And yeah, that's our AI moderated product.
Very cool. It actually, the simplicity of the report here, I think is actually really nice too, in that if I'm the consumer, I kind of know just how to do it. One of the things that we've seen too is how do I get away from just having something that collects dust in a SharePoint file or a PowerPoint, and so having the sort of live pieces so easily accessible by our stakeholders is really interesting. Let me ask that one question that I got so if I'm a person looking at this, is there a way to basically ask a question of the data is where I'm headed?
That's coming. It's one of the questions that we had. One of the things that we want to make happen also is to be able to do it at the analysis level. So being able to do it here so that helping people generate themes and summary from asking questions is part of the experience. So we already drafted our sidebar here and it's in the works. And then same thing for the report, being able to ask those questions. Today, this is also living only at the study level, but the goal is, because the data now will exist and cross-pollinate across different studies, we want for you to be able to manage those data points individually, no matter where they're coming from, and generate those reports from any study that you've generated as well. So it's part of what we're building toward.
Very cool. Well, thank you. Here, I'll bring us back to just the two of us again. I told you before our show started that you had the bravery and inspiration to start a tool like this, and it's clearly been very successful over the years. So I guess I wanted to ask, in some ways there's sort of a rebirth of your product with the new AI thing. So what inspired you to get started on creating a product like this for the field, and kind of what's motivating you to do it in this new era?
Yeah, absolutely. So I used to be a researcher. So I used to run research in some of the best agencies in Paris, and my job was both incredible and terrible. Incredible in that the job of the researcher, I think, is a beautiful job. It's a job of building and scaling empathy, which I think is fascinating. But at the same time, it was terrible because most of my job in agency was to go to clients and to say, we have two options. We can build the wrong thing, and it's going to take 2 weeks, or we can figure out what to build, and we're going to run extensive user interviews and user research on your target audience to learn what to build, and it's going to take 2 to 3 months. What most of my clients would say was, let's build the wrong thing instead. Because by the time you would run your fancy research process, we would have had the time to fail 5 times and to learn from the market feedback. That tension, I think, that exists between the speed of learning and the speed of building is not unique to agencies. It's something that every company that has built any form of digital product has experienced. And we think it's a false trade-off. We think that companies shouldn't have to choose between building fast and building right. And the way to solve it is to make user insights available at the speed of product development. That started that journey. And so we created a V1 in my former agency. I forced customers to try out the solution. And when we saw the value of being able to iterate pre-development, getting those insights in, recreating empathy for stakeholders, that was enough for me to get started working on Maze. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey. And you asked about what's next and how is AI influencing all of this. What's fascinating is if you think about our mandate of making user insights available at the speed of product development, there's two things that are dramatically changing in that sentence. The speed of product development has never been faster. And so what it means that the speed of insights need to catch up. But the second thing that's fascinating that we perceive for the future is that in a world where anyone can build anything, the only differentiator left is what you build. And so that means that we talked earlier about organizations being output machines, where large product organizations, small research teams, what we envision is an opposite world, where insights and learning become the operational muscle that allows you to compete in this world. And that's the future that we're trying to build toward. It's creating an operating system of insight to support organizations that are trying to build an organizational learning muscle. So it's very exciting, I think.
Very cool. And I do, even yesterday, I guess I presented to a large group at one of the social media companies, and I think the first reaction from us researchers, me too, I guess a couple of years ago now, was, well, if we're going that fast, we can't have the nuance or quality that we would have had otherwise. Yeah. How do you discuss that with people and sort of maybe overcome that, or maybe have them think differently?
Yeah. I think speed is being commoditized, meaning like funny enough, we ran a stakeholder study. So one of the things that we recently did was let's ask the stakeholders, when are the times when they value research? Instead of asking the researcher, when do they believe their research is valuable, let's ask the stakeholders about that. And what we learned was fascinating. What we learned was stakeholders didn't care as much about speed. Like speed was kind of a commodity, yet something that they expected from the research workflow. What they cared about was actually the depth of the insight that was being generated, meaning it's okay to be slower when you're driving strategic decision. It's okay to be faster and less accurate when you're trying to drive decisions that are either two-way doors or less strategic decision, like usability, like things that don't need to be at 100% accuracy when you push them to market. And so I think that's the thing with that debate, is that we put the debate on the research practice, when really the debate should be about the type of decision that's where the research is being applied. And so that's the difference that we're seeing for us is stakeholders will always value time when it comes to strategic decision, and they will always value speed when it comes to decisions that are easy to roll back from. And so we're building against those two things, I guess.
I appreciate not having such a 0 and 1 perspective. And if I'm right, the reference you've got, I've heard it sort of based on some things that Bezos has said at Amazon, for example, where you've got a single door. If you go through it, you really can't go, it's a one-way door, or is it really a two-way door? And can we, retrace our steps and try something else? So I think it's a good point that all research is not the same, and it's not as consequential. So potentially there are some things, like we started with, that I don't know, it makes total sense to have democratization and have more questions answered than less. And
exactly. At least that's what I think ultimately what will drive everything is what the organization needs, right? And you also, in a lot of your content, you talk about synthetic panel and synthetic testers. And just like you, we had to think through that technology. What does it mean? Where is it applied? And what we realized is that if we move the focus away from synthetic panel to which decisions do we want to get faster in an almost automated manner, where those decisions being 80% right is enough, right? And I think that's the right way to think about synthetic panel and synthetic testers, which can create a very strong reaction from researchers. Instead, it's like, in the future, if everything that matters is the decision that you make, it means that the scarcest resource that you will have as an organization is access to your users. And so the question becomes, when you have limited access to your users, are you going to spend your time trying to use your users to test flows or copy? Or are you going to use your time to use your users to drive strategic decision? And so if you answer the latter, then synthetic panel might be the right answer for the former, where those decisions being not as strategic and those decisions being okay with an 80% accuracy means that synthetic panel might be the right answer for them. But people start from the technology down, and we start always from the decision down, I guess, with those technology choices.
Yeah, I hope people listen. That's a really thoughtful approach, and I appreciate it. Well, I do need to ask you, as you sort of look to the future, I had a question here that I initially wrote as in the next few years, and who knows where we are in the next few years, but how do you see Maze evolving, and how do you see, so lots of us UX researchers are wondering about our jobs or how we should evolve. So how do you see that sort of work evolving broadly too?
So we are making a massive bet on the researchers. I think that's, if you have to remember one thing from this whole, it's, we believe the researchers are the ones that are going to power the future, but it takes a very special kind of researcher. Internally, we've branded those researchers. We call them the Jacks versus the Dianes. And what we've seen in this world is there's really those two types of researcher that coexist today. The Jacks are traditional researcher. I've been doing research the same way for the past 30 years, cares a lot about the purity of the practice over the influence and leverage that the insights are getting. The Dianes, on the other hand, they are the researchers that care deeply about the influence of their practice. Both run studies, both are researchers by trade, but they act very differently in the organization. The people that we believe are the winners of the future are the Dianes. They are the ones that are able to drive influence in the organization. If that's what we believe, then we're building the platform built for them. We're building a platform that will allow them to create more and more leverage for insights. It means that, again, in a world where everyone can build everything, those people become the centerpiece of the organization. And they are trading with the most important currency of the organization, which is the user voice and the deep understanding of users that you're building for. So that's what we're building against. We're building for those incredible researchers that are managing to create more and more influence in the organization and help shape strategic decisions.
Nice. And yeah, I get both in my class. And it's interesting to see, truly we all sort of go through this very big evolution. I mean, I think for me, I felt like my ability to be a great moderator and get deeper insights and really be thoughtful was sort of part of my reality. If that's why I'm a valuable researcher. So if something else is doing my interviews, what makes me anything? What's my role? What's my entity? What are my belief systems? So it's a really interesting transition right now, and thinking about really it's about strategic influence and really about making sure the company is doing right by end audiences. So it's being successful, but you're also have such deep empathy for the target audience that if we really want to be sympathetic, then the best way to do it, interestingly, is I'm still so fascinated how much AI is helping us be more humanistic, ultimately.
I love that. I love that. And I want to add one last thing maybe on what you just said is there used to be a belief that as a researcher, your value was in your craft and the practice of your craft. And I agree that's evolving. There's another thing that we're seeing that's fascinating is the consolidation of insight needs. Figma is right now hiring for a scaled insight person, which is basically someone running user research and market research and working with the analytics team. I think we're going to see more and more of that. And so if you think about it, the researchers, like those people, are going to have such an expanded mandate of not running a practice, but actually shaping decisions across the board, from market decision to product decisions. So there's never actually been a better time to be a researcher, in my mind, if you manage to reinvent yourself to be that new scaled insight person, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah, no, that such a cool concept. And I agree that, there's a whole nother conversation, but I'm seeing more of really large organizations have their insights team, historically sort of marketing focused, and the like innovation or usability testing, all that side of the world, really like, why do we have these two silos? And for that matter, why aren't we building into that like social listening or everything else? And so really interesting to see, again, that sort of orchestrator sort of notion of all these different fronts that can be unified. Well, thank you so much, Joe. I've got to stop at some point. So I really, really appreciate your time. I could clearly go on because it's been a pleasure. And it's such an interesting model you've got as well. I mean, I don't know. I'll let other people judge, but it strikes me as a really strong one. So thank you so much. I can close out, but just before I do, if people want to try Maze or get involved or in some way, what's the best way for them to sort of reach out or get started?
Yeah, so the maze.co website is probably the best way to get started. If you're an individual, there's a free trial and a free experience where you get to experience the full platform. If you are an enterprise and you're looking to get started with the platform, we love a demo, you can go on our enterprise page and you'll be able to get access to one of our reps that will walk you through a demo. More importantly, we invest a lot in research partners. So we have multiple research partners at Maze that can actually help you set up your first studies, like do the whole work with you and help drive the cultural change that's needed for research to be embedded. So whoever you are in the organization, we have you covered in helping you get started.
Very cool. Well, here, so I'll just have to say thank you so much, Jo, for sharing Maze with us and your thoughts. So let me just close out here. So I really appreciate it, Jo.
Amazing. Thank you, John. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and keeping up on the latest for AI for UX research. And of course, let us know what you thought of all these new tools and what we should be thinking about next. And I want you all to wishing you brilliant insights with AI. So thank you very much.